WhatsApp. Lots to talk about today. Let's bring on Harrison Griffiths, International Programmes Manager at the Institute of Economic Affairs. Great to have you, Harrison. Time to look through some of the papers. And let's just get straight into it. I mean, this is right up your street, isn't it? The front page of the Times today. And a lot of newspapers actually talking about the economic outlook. This quote from the CBI here, headed for the worst of all worlds. Frustrating, says Labour, the economic outlook.
Yeah, certainly. And good morning, Martin.
Morning.
Thank you for having me on. The last few weeks have certainly, it seems like we've really turned a quite gloomy corner in a decidedly gloomy direction on the economic front. And, when Labour came into power, there were some good noises being made from their side on correcting a lot of the failures of the 14 years of Conservative government, the things that were gumming up the supply side of our economy, stopping our economy from growing, things like housing, and liberalising the planning system so that housing and infrastructure can get built. Hasn't been an awful lot of action on that. There has, unfortunately, been some action to constrain the supply of two other crucial factors of production in our economy, energy and labour. It's no surprise that we're seeing quite a gloomy outlook and a continuation of the economic stagnation that we've seen over the last few years.
And is there an argument here to say that we haven't given Labour a fair crack of the whip yet? They've not been in power long enough for any of the changes that they either want to make or have made to have any effect on growth at the moment?
Yeah, no, I mean, that certainly is the case. And of course, the Labour Party have been out of power for a very long time, 14 years. And the new crop who are leading the government now are very different from the ones who left it in 2010. So, yeah, I mean, there are always going to be stumbles along the way. And this is what we now are 6 months into what should be 5 years of government. So, yes, you might be right. Things might turn a corner. But I'm not hugely optimistic that many of the reforms that they're planning to bring in, or indeed many of the policies that they're continuing to implement at the moment, are actually going to have a positive impact on growth. They may well continue to be a drag on it.
Lots of warnings today then from, the likes of the CBI, businesses in the UK. Do they offer any solutions? What are they saying they want to make things better, to maybe stimulate growth?
Yeah, so I think, there were quite a lot of businesses, of course, in the general election who made a point of saying that, Labour were now the pro-growth party and the Conservatives had abandoned certain pro-business tenets, right? But I think, things like hiking employers' national insurance, for example, is just something that's put business sort of on the back foot a little bit and made them kind of reconsider their support of the Labour Party, because, these things can be packaged by the Labour government in a quite populist way as, oh, well, this is big businesses paying more towards the cost of the public sector. But in reality, it's just a constraint on hiring. It's something that makes hiring people more difficult, which is obviously a huge problem for business and a problem for the productivity of the wider economy.
Let's take a look at some of the other stories that are going about in the papers today, and a few, and this is in the Times, it's in the Mirror as well, and the Guardian, as you might imagine. A lot of people talking about the events in the city of Magdeburg, and we had the really sad news yesterday, didn't we, of the naming of 9-year-old Andre Gleisner. He dreamt of becoming a firefighter. I think he was in the sort of children's fire brigade. And just so sad to hear about his death and the death of the four others as well. I think four women aged between 45 and 75. A lot of questions now being asked, Harrison, about what German authorities knew, what they could have done. Did they act on warnings that they perhaps had about this suspect and what he might have been sort of capable of? What have you been gleaning from what's in the papers today?
Yeah, I mean, really, first and foremost, as you already said, Martin, it's just the confirmation of the death of 9-year-old Andre Gleisner is just it's confirmation of a really tragic waste of potential of human life, of innocence in that sense, and that's the first and foremost thing that anybody can take away from reading this stuff. It's utterly gut wrenching to see his mother so bravely, eloquently express the utter heartbreak she must be experiencing at the moment. As far as the perpetrator of this rancid crime goes, I think the fact that people aren't particularly clear at this point as to what motivated him to do what he did is testament to his very clear record of instability. I mean, we seem to have a case from 2013 where he was found guilty of attempting to incite some kind of violence. That there appears to be a record of kind of psychotic disturbances. And here we are, a few days after the attack, and we're not, some people are saying that this guy's, motivated by Islamist ideology. Some saying he's a radical anti-Islamist who abandoned his faith and continued the abandonment of that faith, who had turned to the far right in Europe. It doesn't seem like anybody's really sure of the full facts at the moment. What does seem to be clear is that this guy has got a record in terms of manic tendencies, mental illness, and indeed of incitement to violent action. And this is the thing that people really have to face up to, in my view. I would be on the extreme liberal end of views on immigration in this country, but there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that no matter what liberal immigration system you have in any country, there cannot be space for people who commit violent crimes, who incite to violence. There cannot be room for that. There must be zero tolerance for that. And we're discovering that the impacts of what happens when you don't deal with those types of people in Germany at the moment. There is a huge backlash brewing to this. It's just, it is a pressure cooker at the moment, it seems, in Germany. And somebody's got to get a grip of it.
Another thing we're seeing, of course, and unfortunately, it's all too... I suppose it's sort of as night follows day, something like this happens, and then we see the protests, don't we? The far-right activists who are protesting near the scene of the attack in Magdeburg over the weekend. What do you think the agenda there is for the far right? Because certainly when you look at the ideology of this suspected attacker, he was sort of quite sympathetic towards that cause.
It seems so. I mean, it seems that this person has toed and froed from different ideological perspectives throughout his time in Germany and beforehand. But yes, I mean, it seems that he's positively quoted people like Tommy Robinson and Geert Wilders, the leader of the far right in the Netherlands. The far right's agenda is almost always the same, to take advantage of particular instances of violence and to attempt to use it in service of their violent nativist ideologies. When you see terms like remigration, I mean, it's a horrible euphemism when it's on a sign being peddled around by masked men on a march in Germany. We are, in incredibly precarious times when it comes to this thing. It doesn't worry me so much that the far right are marching or the far right are angry about something. It's a fact of life, as you say, as night follows day, that something like this happens, the far right will try to take advantage. My concern, I guess, in this sense, in Germany, but in plenty of countries, particularly in Europe, also in the United States as well, is that people who do have, much less radical, much less kind of a vile racist concern about immigration, about the impacts of immigration on violence. People who are concerned that, for example, in Germany 30 years ago, people could probably have gone to Christmas markets without worrying about anything. And that today, instances like this happen. I worry that people who have concerns like that feel that they may not be listened to and therefore are far more susceptible to influence from the far right.
I want to get on to a couple more stories that are in the papers, and there's some really fun stuff on turkey dinners, which we'll get to in just a second. But let's just quickly talk about Donald Trump and his latest. And I think this is a sort of maybe precursor of what we can expect, possibly daily, in 2025. Donald Trump's been talking about the Panama Canal.
He has indeed. Donald Trump, it seems to me, in his second... he seems determined to sort of run his administration like the America of the late 1800s. He, of course, himself he's been elected to a second non-consecutive term as president. The only person to do that before was a chap called Grover Cleveland. again in the late 1880s. He seems to be interested in replacing income taxes with tariffs. That's very late 1880s. And now it seems he's really embracing the concept of manifest destiny, America's inevitable territorial expansion. The most recent stuff, I mean, so yeah, as you mentioned, the Panama Canal, he's concerned that perhaps China is taking a little bit too much benefit from use of the Panama Canal, that's a strategic problem for the United States, and that perhaps it should go back in and take direct control of the Panama Canal, which it
and the
hasn't
president
done
of
since 1977.
the president
and
of Panama.
now he seems to be re-upping his claim on Greenland. So yeah, it's a bit weird.
Yeah, well, I think that's certainly one word for it, isn't it? Very quickly, then, let's talk about turkeys, because and Christmas dinners. Basically, this is actually in the Times this morning, page 3 here. Turkeys get chop as Gen Z ditches traditional Christmas dinner. So, what's wrong with your turkey and your stuffing and your pigs in blankets? Then, according to the young hip folk.
Well, I'm kind of with the young hip folk on this. I've always been a bit of an awkward customer when it comes to Christmas dinner, so I don't eat meat. So that's always been an initial problem. And to be honest, I think most of what's on the traditional Christmas dinner plate is pretty overrated, to be honest. Even as I understand, as I say, I don't eat meat, but as I understand from meat eaters, turkey just isn't great meat. It's something that's
it's
only
quite
bought
dry.
out at Christmas.
Yeah, it is. It's not the best. You have it for a day on Christmas, and then you have it in soups and sandwiches for about 2 weeks after that, and that's pretty much it. That's probably the only time you're touching turkey. It's not it isn't the best. I do welcome some other options, I have to say. So, but at the same time, I am a man of tradition. This won't surprise you to hear, Harrison. I'm an old-fashioned man who just likes a turkey dinner at Christmas. And, well, maybe I'm a dying breed. Who knows? Harrison, been great to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on. And Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you, Martin. Thanks for having me on, and enjoy your turkey.
Well, I'll do my very best. Harrison Griffiths, International Programmes Manager at the Institute of Economic Affairs, just taking a look through today's newspapers.